Good, Trav.
So, Fran, you have we met through Toastmasters, which
Correct.
is a public speaking organization. It's prepared us in many different ways to work with many different types of environments. Uh, what was how did you end up getting involved with Toastmasters?
Well, you'll find out in a little bit that I was studying to become a licensed battlefield guide at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It was going to be part of my retirement plan to have a job. That involves a final exam that is a 2-hour speech given while driving a car, obeying all the traffic laws, and getting people out of the car 2 to 3 times and being finished in exactly 2 hours. So I was using Toastmasters to practice my stops when I get people out of the car, and it was very helpful, and I credit them with getting me through. First person in 18 years to pass on the first time through the system.
So, how long is the test?
The test, my class, 156 people took the written exam. It was 300 fill in the blank questions, followed by lunch, and then 8 essay questions. And out of that, 46 of us went forward. And then they did a interview process where you were at one person, and across from you were 8 other people with historians and authors and park rangers. They interviewed you, and out of that group, the 46 went to 20. And then they give you a mentor, and then you get to do this 2-hour exam. Most people fail the 2-hour driving exam. They'll give you one more shot at it, but most of them fell at the second time and have to come back to get done. So in my class, out of the 20 that went forward, I think we got 9 guides out of it. There's been more people in space than there are Park Service licensed battlefield guides in the world.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that is pretty incredible to be able to pass something that immense on the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were talking a little bit earlier, but you found history in a very through a very niche avenue. You want to elaborate on that?
My mother was a genealogist, and she had stumbled upon the fact that one of our relatives fought at the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, when you're 21 or 22 and you come from a family of 5 and you've never really had time to spend with your mother, and she says, any chance we could run down to Gettysburg and look this up? One trip became 2, became 5, became 1 book, became so many books that when I moved from Johnstown to State College, we had to pay extra money to get the boxes up here of books. My library's probably got about 600 books in it. And it's something you have to do. And I don't know about who your audience is, but as you start to approach the age of retirement, I've spent my whole life running around with my hair on fire. And the accountant told me, you better find something to do. And I don't like to golf. I don't like to run. I don't like to hike. So this is how I'm keeping my self sane and staying married.
Keeping the hands busy, right?
Correct.
Now you've given tours, not just you talked about getting into a vehicle, pulling up and stopping, but you've also given uh, kind of some nonstop tours where we're in a group on segways,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And we're moving and grooving throughout the town of Gettysburg. And how did you find yourself in that niche? And what's the difference in the type of tour you're able to give on a Segway versus something in a car, or maybe a little bit, maybe a bus tour?
Well, there's many ways to tour this battlefield. A car, van, buses. I do those buses from 5th graders up to red hat ladies from Kentucky and a group from England who requests that we go out every year. We also do horse tours, and I won't get on a horse. I won't get on anything that's 5 times my weight and has independent thought. Segways were different because a Segway is only 80 pounds. And if I fall off the Segway, somebody come up and say, you know why you fell off that Segway? And you can't do that. Now on Segway, I have a microphone, one-way communication to the group in front of me. There's always a tour leader out front, but again, we get them off the Segway. And on all the tours, the objective is basically simple. It's communicating to the group that you have. And why the Park Service only has a few of us doing this, you have to connect people from what happened 158 years ago to what's going on in their lives today. So we do that with fifth graders, we do it with retired people. Towards the end of my professional career, I was an executive director at Conemaugh Hospital. I ran the surgical service line. I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I can put people to sleep and most of them wake up. Actually, all of them do. That's part of the deal. But towards the end of my career, we were doing a lot of organizational training. And I started to notice that a lot of the stuff that I was doing for Conemaugh, a lot of the stuff that I was doing in my master's degree work absolutely was occurring on the battlefield 158 years ago. I mean, think about it. Think about what's going on. Everybody on this line a year ago had no idea that COVID was going to shut down industry. Nobody's strategic plan had that in there. The same thing happens at Gettysburg. They don't have communication. They don't know what's going to happen yet. And they are actually responding and reacting just like businesses today. So because of that, I do a lot of leadership tours out there with groups like the United States Army, cadets. I've done Lowe's. I've done a group from United Airlines, a group from Southwest Airline pilots. And because of that, I work with Lincoln Leadership Institute, which is a group that does training for groups all over the world. He does Black & Decker. He does Old Milwaukee tools. That's kind of what I do. It's easy to hook up the two. I don't find that a problem.
One of the, I love the space that you're in because it's all personal development. One of the examples you gave a long time ago, and I can't remember who it was, but you talked about leadership and time management, scheduling things out. Are you scheduling out, months, years ahead, months ahead, weeks ahead, or days ahead?
Right.
And I forget which I believe it was a general that you made an example of, but being able to schedule out so far ahead gave them the strategical upper hand.
And that's one of the things towards the end of my professional career. We would spend hours doing SWOT analysis, and we would have strategic plans that were 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. We would spend hours of time and treasure doing those strategic plans. Not one strategic plan 3 years ago predicted the COVID-19 virus. And I think it's one of the fallacies, and there's a great article in Harvard Business Review called The Big Lie of Strategic Planning. We're kind of foolish if we believe we can predict the future. And I only have to point back at COVID-19. Nobody predicted that we would be doing this by Zoom. Nobody predicted that most of us would be working from home. That equates really well with what's occurring in the American Civil War. Most people in the country thought that the war would be over in 90 days. So they recruited soldiers for 90 days. Guess what? It lasted way beyond 90 days. And the generals and the people on the front lines in 1863 are just like you today. They are reacting to things with imperfect information. That's why COVID was such a disaster a year ago, because we didn't have imperfect information. And I was watching professionals that I had worked with trying to make decisions in a strategic platform. It just doesn't work. Most strategic planning should probably be, what are we going to do in the next 6 months? What can we do in the next year? And maybe where were we sitting for 18 months? But going out 3 and 5 years more and more is it's just not working. And it didn't work for the armies in 1863. And that's kind of how I link people up.
yeah, being able to navigate. I always tell my friends and colleagues and clients, you can't make good decisions with bad information.
Mhm.
Um, it just doesn't work like that. If you have bad information, it doesn't matter how good the decision is. Um, you can't be able to move forward.
And
So
nowadays, and 158 years ago, these leaders and leaders of today, you're leading at the point of the attack. You've got somebody out there competing with you. And I tell people all the time, a chess game, the board has 64 spaces. There's 16 white and 16 black pieces. Before the game starts, the number of unique outcomes to that game cannot be calculated. Maybe more than the total atoms on the planet Earth, more than the grains of sand. As soon as white makes the first move, half of them are gone. So what I tell people all the time, the stress you're feeling nowadays is leading at the point of the attack. You've got somebody out there fighting against you. You don't know what they're going to do. And all the stress and nights that you're not sleeping is because you haven't been trained how to act when the situation is rapidly changing. And that's kind of what Lincoln Leadership Institute and what I bring to the battlefield. What was going through these guys' heads? How do you handle it today? The scenario is called an OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And if you look it up, it comes in the Korean War. Fighter pilots, now in jet aircraft, were getting shot down at an alarming rate for the United States. And a colonel decided our way of training pilots doesn't work that way. And he changed the scenario. And that's kind of what we do on the battlefield. We change the scenario. We tell you how to motivate people. If you've ever been in a meeting where somebody from finance gets up and says, we didn't make our quota for the last month, or we're 15% behind budget, or we really need to do this because I've been working so hard. That will not get 12,000 Confederate soldiers on the afternoon of July 3rd to go across the field into 100 Union cannon and 7,000 men with rifles. That motivation does not work. So we teach motivation. We teach moving at the speed of being at the point of the attack.
that being able to move people, um, it's the chiefs and Indians. I guess are you you know are you listening to the right chief? Or you listen, or are you making the right moves as an Indian?
Mhm.
And that can again going back to the not having good information.
Correct.
Um, how has the leadership and being a historian, how has that hat changed, uh, going from in person to now we're virtual?
Well, we all but shut down last year. We are doing some Zoom type things, but it's not the same as being there. And probably one of the best things I like to do is have a group of like the president, the director, and a frontline manager, and start talking about things like how he sends an email. And I'll pick a General Lee and said, here's the message that General Lee sends to General Ewell on July 1st. Take the hill if practicable. And everybody does what you did. Their eyes go up. And then I said, what did General Lee tell General Ewell to do? And they said, God knows. And then I'll look at the president and say, did you ever send an email like that? And he'll start to laugh. And I'll say to the people, do you ever? They said, yeah, we do get emails like that. So communication between levels is a problem. It was a problem in 1863. It's a problem in 2021. That's a skill to learn how to communicate effectively. And that's kind of what we talk about on the battlefield. And it eventually, people, when you get feedback, say, you've absolutely changed the way we ask and communicate, the way we ask things and pull things off. because being nondescript, especially when you're a leader, is not a good thing, and especially when you're going to commit human lives like it happened here at Gettysburg. Now people say, oh, I don't commit human lives, and I usually say, oh yes you do. You commit their jobs, their ability to take care of their families, their ability to do things. You have lives at risk with every decision you make. So that communication is an issue. What does every organization say? Oh, it was a communication failure. Oh, they didn't communicate well. And while all of you are out there saying, oh, 1863, they didn't have the cell phone, that is correct. It would take 3 hours from the time a general like Robert Edward Lee tells a soldier like Travis or Fran to attack. 3 hours. Oh my God, so much has changed. But there was an article in Harvard Business Review lately that said the same thing happens today because you can communicate too fast. So there's no real difference from 158 years to back then because you're communicating, and how many, you've done it, right? You've sent an email, and as soon as you let it go, you go, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? So we give strategies on how to do that. Like never, ever put who you're sending it to until you finish typing the email. Don't ever do it. If you're sending an email out that you're moving fast, don't ever say who you're sending it to till you're done, because it forces you to have that moment of going like, I better not send this. Abraham Lincoln did it. He would write nasty notes all the time and put them in the drawer. He would never send them, but he vented in those notes. So nothing has really changed. And that's kind of how we bring history and stuff together on the field.
If I know correctly, I believe his wife even threw out a couple.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, he did. Yep. And when people would send him, like following the Battle of Gettysburg, the commander for the victorious Union Army, George Gordon Meade, sent a telegram to Lincoln and said, we have removed the invader from our soil. And in Lincoln's letter that he did not send to Meade, he said, damn it, everything is our soil. But he didn't send that letter. So yes, nothing changes.
Yeah, and it's just basically poor communication then, and now it's just poor communication, but it's sped up, and it's it's just all kind of creating this backup, this car, 22 car pileup that is stifling.
You've been on those email strings where you have no idea what people are responding to, but there is a way out of that. We were teaching a thing at the hospital that was called team steps. It was team strategies and tools to enhance performance and safety. It was a way that the military and hospitals had decided this failure to communicate is costing lives, both on the battlefield and both in the hospitals. And I do a lot of that teaching out there, how to send a message that whoever you're sending it to has to respond some way, how to respond when you disagree with the message, that the person getting the message doesn't become defensive. And when you start using, I think there's like 18 tactics in there. I teach the 2 that work best. You'll suddenly notice that even when you're talking to a 5th grader or your spouse or significant other or a teenager or your parents or your adults, if you send the message correctly, all of a sudden you'll find people are communicating even when it's uncomfortable. So that's kind of the stuff that we do.
Yeah. The historical value and really life lessons that come out of these tales of strategy, and from the top of the top to the guy loading the cannonball to the guy blowing the trumpet.
Yeah, it's easy to do, and I think because it's so far removed, I can look at, I had like some big vice president, I didn't know he was in my group. I said, you're the Robert Edward Lee in this group. why the hell would you ever send a message like that? And he laughed. He goes, I send them all the time. And I said, so you need to stop that. And afterwards, the guy goes, do you know who you were talking to? I said, no, but he wasn't offended. So the power of that battlefield is the power to knock down those walls. You know, you're not, you're a person, and your title is CEO, owner of the business, but sorry, you're a person, and you may suck at communicating, just like Robert Edward Lee did. So, and that's kind of where I think the magic of leadership in the battlefield works, because I can say that and I'm okay with it.
You can make comparisons that you wouldn't be able to make otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think that's it. So before we wrap up, what's your favorite story of, I mean, everybody's like enthralled, like the top of your head, like your knee jerker, like this is the one that I go to. What's your favorite story?
So the story that got my license, first one in 18 years, you have to understand I have a battlefield guide with me who, Fred was a guide for 20 years. He knows more information. He forgets stuff that I'd like to remember. And the superintendent of guides from the park, I was telling him the story of Pickett's Charge. Now, most people tell the story of Pickett's Charge from the commander's level, from General Lee for the South and General Meade from the North. My whole 2-hour tour from Toastmasters was to get to that point. Everything that I had done in the hour and 40 minutes up to the end was to tell my story about Pickett's Charge. Pickett's Charge is the climactic charge of the Battle of Gettysburg, where 12,000 Confederate soldiers aged 19 to 22, following a 2-hour, 240 gun cannonade, will walk across a mile of open field to their death and destruction. That story resonates with everybody, and that's the story I tell. I don't talk about Lee and Meade. I talk about what those soldiers thought, what they felt. I tell people what it feels like to get shot. I tell people what they smelled, what the temperature felt like, and then I conclude the story by saying, after the Confederates failed to take and push the blue soldiers off, they started to have to walk back over this field of their friends that they couldn't even recognize. And as they do, several of them turn and walk backwards to the Confederate line. And at that point, I pretty much have everybody, and I'll look at them and say, why do you think they're walking backwards? And even the park ranger said they didn't want to get shot. And I said, they do not want to get shot in the back, because a bullet in the back will tell mama that they were afraid, or tell daddy that they are a coward. And at that point, I usually have people's eyes tearing up and starting to cry. And I said, they need their parents. And when they get over there, all they have is Robert Edward Lee, who has been in command for over a year. And for the first time, he has lost. And as a leader, as a commander, what's the first thing he says to those troops? He tells them, it's all my fault. I said, that's what a leader does. When you win, the team wins. When you lose, you suck it up. And people just look at me, and I said, we always remember the generals who win: Patton, Washington, Meade, Grant, but we never talk about what Lee did here. And even though he lost at Gettysburg, he immediately reinvigorated his men. As soon as he said, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have done this, the Confederate soldiers, who were decimated, said, let us get a drink of water, reload our cartridge box, we're going to go back over. That's the type of motivation I can teach from a battlefield that I think's missing in industry. It's, how do you motivate people when they've been crushed to get back in line? And Lee, whether he was brilliant or he just jumped into it, that's probably my favorite story, because people aren't expecting that to come around. So that's probably my favorite. There's hundreds of them here. I'm working on a story now for August, and every time I tie into something, there's more there.
I love it. I was just taking notes. how do you motivate people when you get crushed?
Mhm.
And that's a hard pill to swallow because where if you are in business leadership of any kind, which most of the people on this in the social share club are, they're
Mhm.
business owners, business leaders, and business advocates, really, because business are people. But as people, we have so many things going on, whether it be in our personal life, in our professional life, or what have you. You just get crushed, and being able to get back at it, to
Mhm.
me, that's extremely important.
Right. The key to motivating employees is only 3 words. That's it. And I tell people all the time, the problem with leaders that I've had my experience with, they send mixed messages. They send, "This is what I want you to do. Come on, guys, I love you," at the same time. You can't send that mixed message when you're motivating. The mixed message is simple, 3 words: make me care. I can tell you that the Confederate generals, before those 12,000 young men took off the field, and say, "We're here to save slavery and help Jefferson Davis." No, they said things like, "For your mother, for your homes, for your freedom, we will take that wall." They didn't, we miss it. And when I have leadership groups on the field, they look at me and I said, "You've heard it. You've heard people get up and say, 'Come on, guys, we got to do it.' That's not enough to move 12,000 Confederates to their death, nor to make your staff come in on Saturday to get it done." One of the best exercises that I ever did with our group that was working at Conemaugh was with crayons and construction paper. And I said, "Here's the crayons, here's the construction paper." And what did we, my wife's sitting here, we gave him about 10 minutes. We said, "Why did you come to work today? And I want you to draw it like you're going to hang it on your fridge." So first of all, you've got these high power physicians, they're coloring, and then they presented their work. "Well, I'm coming to work because I have a dog, I like to play hockey, I have kids in college." And I said, "Okay, that's why you came to work." Now there's an apathy in medicine that was going on, and I looked at them and I just got real quiet. And again, using Toastmaster strategy, I said, "If I would take this same crayons and paper and give it to the patient that you hate the most and said, 'Why are you here seeing you?' what would they draw?" It's the same thing. My wife, my kid, I want to go to the wedding, I need to get back to work. And you could almost watch the light bulbs come around and just say, like, "Yeah, we're all moved by the same thing. It just depends what side of the coin you're looking at." So, and that's what I do at Gettysburg.
That is awesome. And if that it isn't some of the
Hmm.
realist talk, right?
Hmm. It is.
We're all the same. We're all here for the same reasons.
That's right. But most people don't recognize it. And we had a director of finance who would get up and do a financial report and go through every line. One of my big pet peeves is PowerPoints. Hate them. Every line. And I asked her one time, with her permission, if after she was done, if I could do the finance, and she said, "Sure." And I got up and I said, "Do you see that fact that we're 10% under budget?" And I looked at, and I forget, 500 people. I said, "That means you can't pay your car payment, or the kid that mows the lawn, or you can't get that outfit for your daughter who's in dance. Every time you let 10% on the ground because you're too rushed and they slam at you, that takes away from the things that you come to work for." People still remember that. They don't remember the budget item for that quarter. That's what we teach. You motivate people from the why. And in your industries, I don't know who's out there, they're not coming to work for you because it's you, right? I always tell people, and I'm stealing from my wife, she'll say they call it work because they have to pay you to do it. If it was fun, they would call it hockey. All right. So if they're not if you're being paid to come to work, it's because you don't want to do it. Then you've got to figure out what they're doing with their money. And that's how you motivate people. You motivate people from the why they're doing this. And you have to be honest. They might just be doing your job because they're stepping forward. And I used to say, people, I'm okay with that. Let me help you. So it's the difference. And that's, I don't know, that's what 20 years of being a leader is, and studying history and hooking it all up. That's what I deliver.
So, Fran, we're at the top of the half hour here. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Fran, or want to reach out and maybe potentially schedule something with you?
Travis, I'll leave an email with you. It's fran.feyock@gmail.com. It's not that hard. And yeah, we can do that. If you have a big group that wants to come down, we can figure that out too. I even have the capability. We haven't done it. We tried it last year, but COVID just destroyed everything. If you have a group of people that I think you want to do something where everybody's on the same footing, I'll take you out on a Segway, because you have to learn how to drive a Segway first. And it doesn't matter if your title is chief cook and bottle washer or the person that sweeps the floor. Nobody knows how to ride a Segway. And that, I think, is going to be a cool leadership experience as we go out. So we can even arrange that for you.
I enjoyed riding the Segway. My sister has one of those hoverboards.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little bit of experience riding those Segways. It's basically like a hoverboard with a handle.
Correct. Then you have to learn to trust the Segway. That's what I tell people. That thing is working very hard to keep you upright. Don't get in its way. But that's hard for a human to let go, which is why I can't let go of a horse. Sorry. That horse will just throw you off because it saw a fly.
Right.
So, yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Yep.
Well, Fran, I want to thank you for jumping on and jamming out today in the Social Share Club.
Yep.
You have. I hope that maybe we can do some more sessions and maybe some storytelling. What do you
Absolutely.
think?
Absolutely.
Oh man, that would be great. Hearing some of the stories that you have are just it's like just really just story time, just sitting around, close my eyes and let Fran talk, because it's definitely a thing to remember. So.
Oh my God, you can pick the leadership topic. I can give you one. I'm reading about a guy named Henry Hunt. He was the chief of the Union Artillery. Now, we've all had people who work in supply chain, and what does supply chain care about? Cost. And he is hollering at his men saying, every time you fire that cannon, it costs the government $2.72 per shot. I'm sitting there going like, I've heard that. That's now made my tour. So
yeah. I just watched War Dogs the other day.
Yep.
So, all right, we will close up today's show. Fran, great having you.
Anytime.
We will talk to you more next time. And if you need your car detailed, head on over to American Automotive Solutions. Ask for Mike. Tell him Travis sent you, and he will take care of your new ride. If you need a new presentation for your company, you try to figure out what kind of message you want for your upcoming presentation. You're on the struggle bus, message me. I'll help you out. Head on over to trav.media. You can see some of the samples that we built for different clients. I'm sure you'll love it just as they did. If you want to check out the new social audio mobile app, head on over to onair.today and sign up as a test user. With that being said, I want to thank you for checking out this episode of the Social Share Club, and we'll see you next time.
have a mindset of curiosity. And so there can be a lot of pressure to perform. It's like, I really want to make this dream happen.
There's an understanding of mental health and well-being that people don't really realize.
Exercise is the best medicine that there is.
You gotta believe in yourself. You gotta believe you can do it. You gotta push. You gotta want it.
Adding to positive conversation and elevating everybody's vibration on some level.
I should have done it sooner because you've taken so much burden off me. You've taken so much time that I've wasted off my plate.
You've got to take that leap of faith and step a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
What is going on, Social Share Club? Travis here, and I've got a special episode. But without further ado, grab the like button.
Have a mindset of curiosity. And so there can be a lot of pressure to perform. It's like, I really want to make this dream happen.
There's an understanding of mental health and well-being that people don't really realize.
Exercise is the best medicine that there is.
You gotta believe in yourself. You gotta believe